Hi there, Sandra here from the Schwowin's Nest. Today I am collabing with two wonderful ladies, Mary from Rocky Mountain Gardens and Cheryl from iStyleMyStyle. What we're doing is showing you some thrift store flips. I found this stool at a thrift store for $4.99. It was still in some pretty good shape, but was a little bit loose and wonky. So the first thing I did was take the top off and just make sure that all of the pieces were screwed in tightly. For this one side, it was still wiggly, so I ended up having to use some of my Weld Bond glue to glue it down and secure it in place so it wouldn't be wiggly anymore. Then I just wiped off the excess and set it aside to dry for a couple of hours. The next part of what I'm doing is making a shelf for the bottom rungs. So I grabbed this cheese board that was the perfect diameter, and I'm going to paint it with gray chalk paint first, and then I'm going to attempt to do a galvanized metal look on it. So here's my first attempt at painting galvanized metal. I started with this darker silver color and then realized it was way too dark. So then I switched over to a lighter silver and just continued pouncing with my stencil brush to try and get the effect. I also then used some white and some silver and blended around. I'm not going to take you through all of that because I don't end up using it. I didn't like how it turned out. Then I all of a sudden had a brainstorm. I have these galvanized metal charger plates from Michaels, and I've got about 8 of them, and I thought, you know what, why not just glue that on top of the board and make that part of the shelf, and then it looks a little bit more galvanized. I liked how this turned out, but I think next time if I do a project like this, I'll just revert back to my galvanized metal spray paint and just use that as a quick way to get that look. Moving on to the stool, I like the white on it, but the look I was going for was more of a coastal farmhouse, so I cleaned it up really good and I'm painting it with 2 coats of Serenity Blue chalk paint. How many of you use chalk paint brushes with your chalk paint? Go figure, they've made a brush that works with that particular type of paint. So I've never used a chalk paintbrush before, but this is my first time using it. I picked this one up at the Home Depot. It's Bennett brand. I'll have a link in my description box for it, and I love it. I will not go back to painting furniture with a regular brush. This went on so smooth and dried so quickly. It was amazing. After the 2 coats that I painted were dry, I took some coarse grit sandpaper and just distressed the corners. I wanted some of that white to show through and make it look a little bit older than it should be. To put the shelf in on the second from the bottom rungs, I did need to open up the stool a little bit. It wasn't too difficult to do. I just did it on the one side, and now I'm taking the shelf and just fitting it in. I won't need to glue it or put anything in it to hold it in place. Once I close up the stool again, it's just going to hold the shelf nice and secure. I also painted the seat of the stool the same Serenity Blue, and now I'm just going to fit it all together and put the screws back in place. Then I needed something to cover up the screw holes, and I was lucky enough to find these large tacks out in my garage. So what I'm doing is just poking them into a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to use my galvanized spray paint, which is the easy way to get the galvanized finish, and I'm just going to give them one good coat. So while I was painting these, I was thinking of how I could put these on because there's a hole in there, and so there's nothing for the nail to hang on to. So I came up with the idea of just using some hot glue, filling up the hole, and then placing the nail into it and letting it set up. And this technique actually worked really, really well. For the final assembly of my stool turned farmhouse tray or plant stand or whatever kind of stand you want to call it, I needed to glue the stool onto the tray. So I've got the tray upside down on a container just to give it a little bit of stability. And what I'm going to do is use again my Weld Bond glue and put some glue on the galvanized tray and then flip the stool over and glue it on top. The tray was also a thrift store find for $1.99. I just made sure it was centered and then set it aside to dry. I did have to do a little bit of touch up with the Serenity Blue, so I took care of that too. I hope you liked this video, and I hope you got some inspiration to go thrifting and find some home decor items that you could flip. Please don't forget to go check out the playlist link and see Cheryl and Mary's videos too. Thanks for watching.